heard quite a bit about it. I'm familiar with things. And it seems actually that everything today is being computerized. We're certainly computerized here at this masjid. We're probably the most computerized masjid in the world. This, of course, is because of the work of Ustaz Khalifa and his discovery of the 19th code in the Quran through the computer. He continues to do new work with the computer, and he's learning more things about the code in the Quran by means of the computer. And we have some other people here in the masjid are also starting to get involved with the computer for various Sister Iman has been doing an index of the English translation of the Quran. She's been using the computer on that. She's really taking quite an undertaking for herself. She's been out for a couple of years. So it's very important passage she's doing. Now, Ustaz asked me to give this khutbah today because myself and Brother Rasheed here have been doing some work over at the University Computer Center these last 3 or 4 months. And what we've been doing is been putting the Quran onto their computer, onto the computer over there, in order to reproduce the work that Dr. Khalifa had done. And Brother Rasheed, as many of you know, is a systems engineering student, and he's very knowledgeable about the computers and what you can do with them. And my role in the project has been to type the Arabic Quran onto the computer itself, since I can read the Arabic text. And Ustaz Khalifa wanted me to say a little bit about what we were doing and why. And as Ustaz and Dr. Mahul have repeated many times here, the numeric code and what has been revealed to us about it here in this masjid is really only the tip of the iceberg. And we've seen Dr. Khalifa come many times and show us some of the discoveries he's made. And also Dr. Mahul has additionally been able to show us the connections between the code and the abjad value, the letter count value of many of the beautiful names of God. Now, when Brother Rasheed and I started this project, we had several ideas in mind, besides reproducing the work of Dr. Khalifa. But our first major project is just to get the entire Quran from the Arabic into the computer and assisting the computer to read. And I expect that this may take us a couple of years. And we certainly would appreciate any help if anybody else who can read the Arabic and might want to participate. Would like to get in touch with myself or Rasheed to type in the Arabic, and we can get it probably a little faster. Because once we have an accurate file of the Quranic text on the computer, in addition to reproducing the work of Dr. Khalifa, which is very important in confirming anything scientific, it must be reproducible. So this is an important value of doing this kind of work. We'll also be able to use the file that's created of the text to look for other relationships, or do statistical analysis, or any type of project that occurs to us in the kind of test that we might do in investigating some of the other possible relationships in this numeric values in the text. We hope perhaps one day that when this work is completed, that this mosque here, in addition to having the Quran and the various books of Dr. Khalifa available for distribution, we'll also be able to have computer tapes or discs available that other people can check out Dr. Khalifa's work or do other investigations on their own or verify it against the original text without having to go through all the painstaking and time-consuming work of themselves printing it into a computer. Now, Rasheed has passed out here some printouts, and this is some of our initial work. We've just really done only 5 5 surahs have been proofread. And these are printouts for the results from Surah 42 and Surah 50, showing not only the count of the Qaf, which is the important letter in Arabic. 42 has Qaf, Mim, and Ayn, Sin, Qaf, which have various relations. And 50 has Qaf. Surah 50 is the surah that has 57 Qafs. And Surah 42, which is twice as long, also has 57 Qafs. Now this printout here will show you the numeric value of every letter in each of those surahs, in addition to any other letters that are visible by 19, and the count of the Qafs. And there's a code up there at the top so you can interpret what the Arabic letter is. Okay. So this is an initial example of being able to reproduce this thing. So I've got most of the cookbook today. I want to talk more general things that we don't really have any new results, more of the experience that we've had and some of the basis for this kind of thing, or even the basis for the importance of the computer in relation to the Quran itself. Now, as many of you know, who have spent any time at all with any kind of computer, even a pocket calculator, working with the computer changes our habits of thinking, the way we perceive the world around us, particularly mathematically, and in terms of the logics that are used. The effect of computers in every aspect of our lives seems to have become even more overwhelming in the last few years. Well, we've got to stop and remember that God knew all about computers even before the beginning of the world, though he only released this knowledge to us living in the last part of the 20th century. And the potential benefits we may get using computers also makes us vulnerable to potential misuse of them. Indeed, God's gift to the humans of the computer places a heavy burden of responsibility on us to use it for benefit and not for harm. And when we witness today that the majority of people are overwhelmed or impressed by the power of the computer, or many people are afraid of the computers, many people seem to think they're almost godlike, is stuck with it. We must always remember that the computer is really no more than a piece of iron. And we can look to Surah 57, Al-Hadid, which means iron. In the famous verse there, verse 25, it tells us, "We have sent our messengers with clear revelations, and we have sent them the scripture and law to spread justice among the people. We also sent down iron, wherein there is great force or power, as well as benefits for the people. This that God may distinguish those who support him and his messengers in good faith. God is most powerful, almighty." Now, we can take iron in this surah to refer not just to the smelting of particular metal, but to all kinds of technology. And certainly it fits the potentials of the computer, both for benefit and for harm. And indeed, computers are one of God's freely given blessings to the human being, to be used or misused according to what is in the hearts of the people. Now, God ordained that the computer would be the final scripture he would give us. And because his plan was that 14 centuries later, he was going to allow the people to discover how to make and use computers. The computer would open up increasing knowledge of the marvels of God's creation. Let the people see and talk to each other all over the planet via the satellite, or go to the moon, or learn more about the inner mysteries of the genes and the atoms. All of these are only possible for us to do because of the computer. The computer also allows us to wage nuclear warfare. Now, we know all this new knowledge would overwhelm the people. God knew that all this new knowledge would overwhelm the people and even make people suppose that they had discovered the computer independently of God's will and even forget God entirely. God wanted to reassure the believers who would be living in such a fantastically new world as opened by the computer. As we're seeing unveiled to us all around every day. God wanted to let us know, us people who are living in the age of computers, to clearly know that he fully controls the computers along with the rest of his creation. Alhamdulillah. And verse 606, Surah 6, verse 101 tells us, God is the designer of the heaven and earth, and he created all things, and he is fully aware of all things. And in Surah 18, verse 7, he created everything on earth as a dormant in order to test them therewith and distinguish the good doers. This is exactly what Surah 57 told us about the purpose of iron and technology. And God put a coded message in the Quran, his final scripture, that could be found and appreciated only after the computer was invented. In this way, God not only proves to us that he has preserved the written integrity of the Quran, every word, every letter, as has been discussed here many times, he proves to us that he controls the computer, which was needed to make this discovery. Now we should appreciate the exact timing by which the computer message was delivered. Now, if we look back at just the recent history of the computer itself, in the 1940s and 1950s, the modern computer was just being developed. And it was going from having some mechanical gears to all electronics. First using the big old vacuum tubes, and finally transistors. Now, these were called first and second generation computers, when only a few hundred or a few thousand could be made. They were very expensive, and they needed a room the size of a gymnasium to house them. Then in the mid-1950s and the early 60s, miniature circuits and microchips began to be developed. These became the third generation computers. And these are the large ones that are used by universities and businesses. And they process information thousands of times faster than the original computers. This is the kind of computer that Ustaz Khalifa was using when he first discovered the miracle in the Quran. This is the kind of computer they have over here at the University Computer Center. But the little computers, the ones you see back in the office, the ones you see advertised on TV and in the magazines, the computer scientists call these fourth generation computers, and they represent the real computer revolution. They've only been commercially available the last 3 or 4 years, and only in the last year or so at prices that very many people could afford. Some now are only $100 to $300 or $400, and you just hook them up to your TV set. Now we can notice that this timing coincides with the publication of Ustaz's translation of the Quran and the proliferation of the information about the 19 code in the Quran itself. His book, The Computer Speaks, in his other words. Now, the mathematical miracle of the Quran, of course, isn't only to be studied and appreciated by people that have access to big computers in universities or IBM or such places. It's to be appreciated by everyone. And though we don't need a computer to appreciate the miracle of the Quran itself, with or without knowledge of the code, the fact is that the computer is affecting so many people's lives today. And so the appreciation of the code through the computer is very important, I think. Since God exactly timed the release of the computer miracle in the Quran, he also planned the exact timing of the release of these many computers and availability to everyone. He planned that beginning in the 1980s, the computer was going to start becoming as common as TVs and radios and cars. I was hearing on the radio the other day about how some illegal manufacturers over in Hong Kong and Singapore were illegally making mini computers and putting famous names on them for black market sales in Asia, in Africa, and the Middle East at 1/2 to 1/3 the price of the real thing. You know, we can't approve of such practices, but it is a good illustration of just how proliferated the mini computers becoming. And it shows that mini computers are not just in big demand, not just in the U.S. and Japan and Europe, but all over the world, even the poorest countries. So we can take it as a sign to appreciate even more how major a change the computer is making in the lives of all the people in the world, not just us in what we call the developed world. And we can further recognize how God controls the computer and why it was so important to put a computerized message in the Quran when he put it in Muhammad's heart 1,400 years ago. Verse 102 of Surah 6 says, "Such is God your Lord. There is no God except He, the Creator of all things. Therefore, you shall worship Him alone. He is in full control of all things. Therefore, let us turn to God and ask Him for guidance and forgiveness." Repent. Alhamdulillah, wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wahdahu sharika lah. In the second part of my khutbah today, I want to talk a little bit about my personal experience while I was working on the computer, typing in the surahs. Not only did it make me appreciate the enormity of the task that Dr. Khalifa did over the years that he worked on the computer miracle, and especially since when he started out, he had no idea what he was looking for. It also makes me really appreciate how impossible it would be for someone to deliberately put this 19 code in the Quran through human design, especially people who didn't even have computers to keep track of all the words and letters and where they placed everything. Now, I had an Arabic class over at the university, and I just one year, and it taught me how to read the alphabet, and taught me a little vocabulary and some basic grammar. But unlike Dr. Khalifa, I don't really understand the Arabic. So when I'm typing it, basically all I'm doing is typing in letters. Sometimes I'm not even sure where a word begins or ends. But as I've been typing it, I do read the Arabic text, and I get used to words and patterns, and I compare it with the English text, which is there in my Quran beside it, so I am learning more vocabulary as I go on. And it's really, even with only partly understanding Arabic, sometimes I really get choked up just from the sense of it. Totally different than reading the translation, even though if I compare it. Sometimes I'll be typing along and just typing in letters and just reading words without thinking about it, and something will kind of jump at me, and I'll start wondering what's being said here, and then I'll go and look in the English text. And it's kind of a strange experience. But even without understanding the actual meanings of many words, I became to recognize many of them just because they are repeated over and over. And as I typed, I was constantly struck by the odd sensation of patterns and things going on that I really can't articulate. It seemed to me not only are there rhythms when we hear the Quran recited, but there are patterns in the letters themselves. And because of this experience, I am more convinced not only that the choices of words and spellings in the Quran are designed to accommodate the 19 codes, but every word and every letter is chosen and placed exactly for a specific purpose. Now, when I read the Quran, I'm reminded of patterns and rules of logic which I learned in computer programming. Well, I can't offer you any specific evidence for this statement. I will only offer you some of the thoughts that I've had that leads me to make this kind of statement. We're all aware that the Quran is written in an unusual style, unlike any other book. It's almost the first thing that everyone notices when they're reading the Quran for the first time. We find a few verses talking about one subject, and then suddenly the next verse seems to be talking about some entirely different subject. We find ourselves jumping to verses in other surahs scattered all over the Quran to continue learning additional information on a specific subject. Now, this is not the style of an ordinary book of literature, philosophy, or poetry, where the writer keeps his subject development following a linear sequence of logic. It is very much the style of a complex computer program, which sends the computer jumping around to different sets of instructions and other parts of the program and back again. In order for the computer to keep track of where it should go for the next step, the program uses numbers and specific names as addresses so the computer will not get lost. Now, when we're reading the Quran, we sometimes find the same verse numbers in different surahs are talking about the same subject. And it reminds me of this aspect of the computer program. But I must remind you that this is only a speculation, and I have no consistent rule to offer you. So I only submit it to you as a further area for possible investigation. And another character of the Arabic Quran that strikes me, comparing it with the rules of computer programming, is the very specific use of words. In our Quranic studies, Ustaz Khalifa and Dr. Mahul have often drawn our attention to the precise use of words in verses we are discussing and comparing them to the same usages and restatements of points in verses elsewhere in the Quran. Now, in computer programming, when we want to communicate to the computer a specific instruction or piece of information, it is absolutely essential that we use precise words. Anytime that same instruction or piece of data is repeated, we must use the same precise words. It's called the address. If we don't, the computer doesn't know what we're talking about. For example, the electric company might use a computer card with a bunch of holes in it to process our electric bill every month. Now, one set of holes in that computer card tells the computer the customer number. And every customer has a different number. So the program has to tell the computer that it's still talking about the same thing. And it calls that set of holes, wherever the number is, as a customer number. And we find something similar in the Quran. And we take the word, for example, ayah, which can be translated as sign, miracle, marvel, verse, and revelation, and various other translations that we see in the different translations too. It's translated by these various words depending on the context in which it is used. And even though there are other possible words in the Arabic that could be used, the Quran always sticks with the word ayah. The use is consistent. Whether the ayah we're talking about is the parting of the sea for Moses, or the creation, the pattern of the sun and the moon around each other, the signs that Pharaoh showed to that Moses showed to Pharaoh. The letters in the surahs are called ayat. The verses that were sent down were called ayat. The sending of the rain to grow the crops is called ayat. Now, there's many, many examples. Now, they're all named ayat so that we can understand that all these different signs and miracles are for one purpose. They're proof of God's power over everything. Surah 6, verse 105. Thus do we vary the signs, the ayat, to let them realize you have learned, and we explain the signs to the people who have knowledge. Well, I hope I haven't been too long and confusing in this, but certainly my own experience in working on the computer makes me appreciate even more the miracle of 19 code in the Quran and how complex and difficult Dr. Khalifa's own work was. And really, he couldn't have discovered it by intention, I don't believe. And it makes me appreciate even more just how extraordinary and inexhaustible the Quran itself is. It becomes really tempting to go far afield in exploring the technical structure of the Quran. How many letters and words there are, in the choice of words, the arrangement of verses, and surahs, and much, much more. But really, the important thing, in the end, is what was important in the first place, is to believe and worship God alone. And we should strive to understand what the words of the Quran say, telling us how to worship God and how the believer should treat one another. All this elaboration and mathematical detail may occupy our minds like a great puzzle. But if this is the nature of our minds, it's the way God designed it. Still, in the end, what we are learning is nothing more than we bore witness to at a creation. There is no God but God. So let us worship God alone and work righteousness.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Allahu Akbar. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata allazina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul huwallahu ahad. Allahu samad. Lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Allahu Akbar. Sami Allahu liman hamidah. Allahu Akbar. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata allazina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas, malikin nas, Allahin nas, min sharri waswasil khannas, alladhi yawaswasu fi sudurin nas. Allahu Akbar. Sami Allahu liman hamidah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.